Hey everybody, today's episode we're going to talk about Black Panther. We're going to talk about the movie in itself, of course, and also the phenomenon that's sweeping the nation, all that and more in episode 15 of the Reel-ists podcast. Hey all Team Reel-ists out there, this is Oscar.
This is Donnie.
And we have our producer Ruben as always, but today is different. We have a special guest here. We have Justin.
Woo!
Hey, what's up everyone?
Applause.
Applause.
Justin is a friend of ours, so we definitely wanted to have him on this movie. He's one of those people that talked about this movie, hyped it up, and he loved it from the beginning, so I definitely wanted to have him share his thoughts here. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
You're our first guest, Justin.
I'm happy to be here. It's exciting.
The Reel-ists podcast, official first guest.
Hashtag Team Reel-ists.
There you go. See, he has it down.
Great.
Speaking of which, of Team Reel-ists, definitely on social media, make sure, if you're listening to this, you spread the word. We can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube. What else?
Stitcher, Google Play, and our website.
You're just going to read it. Yes, definitely spread the word. We would appreciate it. And also, just want to remind you guys, this is a spoiler discussion of Black Panther. So,
oh my God, don't spoil it.
Thank you for the virtual sound flip. So, yes, be prepared. If you haven't seen it, you should have seen it by now if you haven't. But definitely get ready for this spoiler talk. And also, our reason of why we do the podcast, kind of reminder. We love to talk about movies. We discuss, not just as a review, but also certain scenes or aspects of the film that tie into real life. So we definitely, we're going to have a lot to say about that. Let's get started into this. Justin, since you are the guest, initial thoughts of this movie.
Oh boy.
Keep it real.
Well, no, I hated it. No, I'm just playing. So, Black Panther for me, I remember when they announced Phase 3 from Marvel so many years ago, actually right here in Hollywood. They were just going through all the different slates, and they got to Captain America Civil War, and they announced the Black Panther character, and they announced Chadwick Boseman to play Black Panther. I was intrigued then. I was like, I don't know anything about Black Panther. So just throughout the years, I've just been studying him. My excitement for this movie went back to when they announced the director, Ryan Coogler. I love both of his movies he's put out so far. Fruitvale Station, phenomenal movie. That was his first movie debut. Then he actually pitched the idea for Creed, knocked that out of the park. So when they said Ryan Coogler was going to be on it, I was like, all right, this is going to be about something. So about this movie itself, I love it so much for so many different reasons. I wish I could say that it wasn't biased, but I do believe that my love for it is a little biased. But that's okay though. If my excitement for it wasn't backed by an amazing product, then I would say, it didn't live up to the hype, but for me it did. So my initial thoughts is I love this movie so much.
Okay. Donnie?
I am right there with you, Justin. I loved the film. I didn't really know much about Black Panther, the superhero, the character, so much before I went to see this film. But I left the theater really getting, I think, a good sense of who he is and what he represents and where he comes from. And I just thought it was a great film. I loved so much. And like you said, Justin, a little bit ago, it is a movement. By this point, it is a movement that is taking place, which is really exciting because it's hard to do that. For a film to just be able to do that. It's one thing for a film to go on and be successful and to be a good film and get good reviews from critics, but to actually impact people, impact your day-to-day life and to become a movement that everybody is talking about all over, not just the country, but the world. That's I have to give kudos to that. That's an amazing feat. And it was great. What did you think, Oscar?
I loved it as well. I don't know if that's a surprise to you guys.
Nuh-uh, you did?
Right, I know, right?
What?
No, I really loved it. And I think I loved it. So I did know the Black Panther prior to the movie because I did watch some Avengers shows and some comics. I read about the comics. I didn't read most of the comics in Marvel. So I did know, I was aware of what the character setting is and all that information. So I went in hoping that I'm going to want more from that world, and that's exactly what I got. Because everything that he's featured in, his own appearances on the animated shows and all that, the very snippets of his world, it's kind of just like enough to get you to know who he is, but after that it's someone's taking over the world kind of threats. So going into that, I was really excited that this movie was just about the development of Black Panther and not a tie to the other Marvel movies or characters. It was just all of that, and it was well done. It was a story that was well done. One that I think this is like one of my criteria is to want more and think about it afterwards. So I definitely walked away thinking about a lot of it in the movie. So I loved it. I really loved it. I think we'll go into more details as we go on, but initial thoughts is I loved it. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the sequel. I mean, it hasn't been announced.
I can't wait for the sequel. I said this as soon as the end credits started rolling up. I was like, I am ready for Black Panther 2. We need to do it now.
We want it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right
and
now.
I think it's like we're not even saying we want to see more Black Panther because we know he's coming in Infinity War.
Right.
We want more of like everyone in that world, the supporting characters. I mean, they're still going to be in Infinity War, but their role is going to be small because there's a bigger threat.
Yeah.
But I think we can start this off with one thing that stood out in the movie itself, a scene, a character. Justin, what do you think was something that you would talk about first?
Oh man, I think for me, like going back to what I said about Ryan Coogler as a director, like he has a style about him that he could take different properties and just put his stamp on it. And I think even tying into like Marvel, like over the Phase 3, I think ever since I would say maybe
Civil War?
Maybe Civil War. There's been a different look about these Marvel movies.
That's true.
So some Civil War came out, and then Doctor Strange came out, and that was a whole different feel to it. And then Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was this hit and bit from the first one. Then you had Spider-Man was a whole different Spider-Man, and then Thor Ragnarok was a whole different Thor. So Black Panther, like, all right, so how are they gonna make this different? Black Panther, I think one thing that stood out to me was how this movie looked. It looked beautiful. Like I remember the scene where they're arriving into Wakanda for the first time, and it just says in big words across the screen, Wakanda, and they just really let the scene breathe with the mountains and the clouds, and you see the people running on the ground, and just the way the movie looked really stood out to me. Really, really great. And some of it, was in a studio, obviously, for sound stages and stuff, but some of it was actually out in Africa. They really captured the beauty and the essence of that country. Oh, continent, sorry. Of the country. One of the countries in Africa.
To me, I didn't expect it, but Shuri, she is the best character in Marvel, in my opinion, right now.
Woo! That's a statement.
That is.
Dang.
And I love Captain America for his heroicness, but she was just awesome. I love her intelligence. I loved that she was confident, and I just found this out. She was 16 in the movie. She's only 16. I thought she was like 20, mid 20s, maybe like almost an adult kind of thing.
So that makes her a real princess then. So I mean, she can be a princess in Disneyland. I'm just putting it out there.
She should. She really should. So that one caught me off guard. I mean, I thought the Black Panther himself was going to be the takeaway for me, like, oh, I want more of him. But yeah, she I mean, a lot of the supporting characters, I think we can agree on that. A lot of the supporting characters shined, and that's awesome.
Speaking of Shuri, I just actually read an article today, and it was like it was favorite characters from Black Panther, and the article I read, she was number 1. So I think a lot of people loved her character. That was actually the thing I think about when I think of this movie is the cast, like the ensemble. It wasn't just Black Panther, it wasn't just Chadwick Boseman who carried the film. They all collectively carried the film to like new heights. Ooh, sorry. And I loved it. I loved every single character. What I loved about this film too was they didn't just rely on the Black Panther. Like like there was a lot of women in the film, and like a lot of strong, powerful women, which I think totally speaks to today and is totally relevant with the whole movement going on. And I think that's one of the things I loved about this film, such a great message that it's not just, Black Panther is kind of the, protector and the chosen one, the king, the prince, or the king, sorry, not the prince, the king of Wakanda, and to protect and fight for his people. But it's like they all work together, whether you're, man or woman, they all come together for this great cause. And it's just amazing. And I have to say, since we're talking about favorite characters, Okoye?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm still trying to learn the characters. I apologize.
Okoye
was hands down my favorite character. She was funny. She was spunky. She was just bad I don't want to curse. She was bold and brave, and she was just amazing. She was my favorite.
I think it's really great that the supporting cast in this movie did an amazing job, because if you think about it, if you go back to Civil War, who was the breakout character to stand out in Civil War? Black Panther.
With Spider-Man.
So,
right?
yeah,
Right
and with Spider-Man,
out.
but Spider-Man was in it only just for a little bit. But Black Panther was the one that a lot of people walked away from Civil War and was like, oh my God, I want to see more of this character.
Yep.
So if he was the only one who was great in this movie, then I think that would have like brought it down a little bit. But the fact that, Black Panther did his thing, and of course he was amazing. But now you got introduced to all these other characters, and they were all phenomenal in all different ways. Mm-hmm. I think that just shows like just the powerfulness of this movie. And like you were even saying about the different women, like the three main women in this movie, Lupita Nyong'o's character, Nakia,
Mm-hmm.
like all three different women, they all were powerful in their own way. Like none of them were dependent on each other. None of them was like the damsel in distress, like the typical, side women in a movie or anything like that. They were all powerful. They were all important and relevant in their own ways.
And they all had their own like strengths. Like they all had strengths, but they were like you said, they weren't like the same character. It wasn't like they were all the
strong
same.
in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, that was true. I mean, all the characters. Even the villains, and I think that's awesome too. That the villains is the one thing that I'm kind of not really embracing, I guess would be one way to say it. I thought Ulysses Claw was a great villain. I was sad that he got killed midway. I get, his role at that point was over. But I feel like for Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan did a great job, but I just feel like the character needed more time for us to really like hate him in that sense. Like we definitely understand where he's coming from, that he felt he was left out of this world that he should have been a part of from the beginning, due to his father being a spy that ended up betraying them. I get all that, but I just felt like it was a villain that needed another movie. Like this one should have been one where Ulysses Claw should have been the villain for the entire film, and Killmonger was slowly making his way in, and then that would have been an awesome one for a sequel, because at that point you kind of like, you don't know what to expect. He made his way. He was like really kind of like a mastermind kind of thing. I mean, that's just my personal thought on the villain itself. I'm still having a tough time really trying to understand, like, he really wanted to go to Wakanda to be king, and he knew everything, like, just like that. It's like, I understand it, because you had a book that his father wrote. I believe unless that was just in a dream.
No,
that was a real thing, right?
Yeah. I think though, Oscar, part of it is, I don't think the narration of Killmonger was to hate him, though. I think the one of the powerful things about this movie is you can see both sides of the story. So on one side you can see T'Challa, and you can see where he was coming from, where no, we want to protect, we want to keep Wakanda isolated. And I think the thing that makes Killmonger so powerful is because he had an agenda. He came in there and was like, excuse me, he had an agenda. He came in there, and he eventually did take over the throne a little bit, but the reasons behind him doing it, like when I was watching it for the very first time, I was thinking about, okay, what other great villains have we had in movies? And I immediately thought about Heath Ledger's Joker. And his motive, he was vicious and he was ruthless and aggressive, but he had a vision behind the reason why he was doing it. He had a message he was trying to get Batman the entire movie. Like, in order for you to sometimes get things done, you have to kill. You have to do that. And Batman's one rule was, I do not want to kill. So the entire movie, he was trying to get Batman to kill. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like in this one, the reason why he was doing what he was doing is because you guys are sitting over here in Wakanda isolated, and there's, you know, Africans, there's black people all over the world suffering, and you guys have the resources to go out there and help them. If you guys would have helped them all along, there would have never been slavery. There would never been colonized in Africa. There would have never been poverty in all these different places. And I want to bring Wakanda tech to those people so that way they can, you know, protect themselves. So especially for me as a black man, I'm looking at that saying, you know what, I could see both sides of where he's coming from. And I think that was a narration. So we didn't need an arc of 2 stories or 2 movies for Killmonger, because his mission was to go in there and pretty much prove Wakanda, the way you guys have been doing things, as great as you guys are, is wrong. And even by the end of the story, T'Challa understood where he was coming from, because he made that speech at the end with, you know, the union, and was like, no, we're gonna open up. So had Killmonger came along and did that, he would have never got to that point. So I feel like that's why Killmonger is a great villain, because it's not someone you want to hate, but it's someone is like, yes, I hate him, but I also feel bad for him because I understand his struggle. I understand where he's coming from, and he's actually making a valid point. It's just his methods are a little bad.
I was gonna say that too. Like, I feel, well, yeah, what you just said. Like, even though he's quote unquote the villain, it's like a lot of what he was saying, the reasoning behind it, the motive behind it, it's like, well, he's not wrong. Like, it's not, if you can understand where he's coming from his point of view, you can totally kind of see his point. Not saying, like, I mean, watching Michael B. Jordan, okay, first of all, Michael B. Jordan was great. He was great in this film. I just got to say that.
Right, of course.
So good. So good. Watching him, I felt at first, I was like, man, he's so fueled by hate and anger and rage, and just anger for the way he grew up, the way he saw his people grow up, the way he saw his community in America grow up, and like you said, Justin, by the, you know, when he found out about where he came from in Wakanda, and found out that they did have the resources, the technology, everything that they could have helped society, they could have helped, you know, their people out in, you know, in America or wherever. That's kind of where he's like the fuel for his tactics kind of kicked in. And so like as we left the theater, and I've been thinking about it, because like I said, when I left the theater, I was like, oh, he was a villain. I hated him. Like, I'm glad he died, you know, because you want to see the good guy prevail. But at the same time, you do kind of see his point and see his reasoning, and which makes you kind of sympathize a little more and not look at him as just this one-sided villain. You kind of view him differently. At least I do.
He took the mantle from his father, though. Like at the beginning of the movie, you know, when you find out that his father helped Claw steal the vibranium, you know, he even told like the original,
vibranium.
Yeah, the vibranium. He even told like the, you know, T'Chaka, which was T'Challa's father, you know, like, look at our people suffering. Like, we can use these resources to help them out. So, you know, with Killmonger, he took on that mantle from his father. And then also when he found out where he came from and how he is part of royalty, you know, growing up over, that's built up rage, you know, and throughout the years. So he had one mission since the moment his father died was, I'm going to get back and I'm going to take over the throne. So I feel like he was a powerful villain in the sense, yes, he was the antagonist of the movie. But at the same time, from the narrative standpoint, it wasn't just like good and bad. It was, you left the movie theater saying, I can see both sides of the situation. I can see both sides of the argument. And I think that's what makes great storytelling. So.
For sure. I mean, it does that part of it. But I mean, there's just a lot of things that I look back at the character, at the plot of it, not necessarily the character. The character was well written in the sense that, yes, I mean, I agree with you guys in that sense of, I can understand his reasoning, his actions, or his beliefs for his actions. But, you know, I was just disappointed because when he first defeated T'Challa in the combat and he became king, I mean, you just know that he's not going to stay at the throne for long because that's not the movie. I mean, that would have been a complete weird twist.
That would have been
like,
really weird if that's how the movie ended.
Unless there was like a part
like,
two.
Yeah, unless it was like, okay, there's.
So I mean, if it's just like that's what I'm saying that I had a problem with in that side of it was the plot side of it, not the character, just the plot of he took the throne, but I didn't believe he was going to keep the throne. I would have been also interesting if he did have an impact to T'Challa's change of like, all right, we are going to help out. But it would have been nice if he did have some other impact outside of just T'Challa. And like in the sense of have one of those ships that were leaking out that was trying to escape actually did escape and Everett Ross' character failed. Like, I felt like that would have been nice to have some kind of impact in the same way like the Joker turned Two-Face or Harvey Dent to become Two-Face. Gave him that push in that sense. Like
Harvey Dent still died though.
Right. But I'm not saying in that comparison, not comparing them at all. But I'm just saying like in a way like there was something that he did successfully. But
no, I understand. I just think that I think it would have been a different like movie and a different narrative had let's say one of those ships got away or if Claw didn't die. And I think just for this story point, I don't think that's what they were going for. So I do validate and I understand where everything you're coming from when it comes to that. And I think sometimes it's really, you go into a movie and you would like to see, especially in these Marvel Cinematic Universe movies where, okay, one character goes to the next and goes to the next and they have an arc of a story. I just feel like their purpose in this movie was, start and finish. And I feel like, to me, it wouldn't have been as impactful if they were going to be in the second movie. And I think that's why in the end, where T'Challa was like, let me bring you back to my lab, I can heal you. He was like, no, like, let me die. And even those words, like, my ancestors knew I'd rather die than be in bondage.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I feel like even those words were so impactful on so many different levels.
No, I mean,
and if he would have lived or if, the only one thing I can say I can agree with is maybe Claw could have been a villain in another movie, but I feel like there's other villains that Black Panther can face along, and you have to just mentally know that Claw has been around for 30 years and fighting, his father, so maybe that could be a thing as well. But I think for Killmonger, I feel like when he died at the end of the movie, it made the movie that much more
impactful. For sure. I mean, the way they ended his story in that sense was well done. But I mean, I get that part in that sense of how he died. He served his role. He served his purpose. I just felt like the story could have gone a different way. I mean, obviously, this is just my opinion, of course. I feel like it could have gone a different way with him.
Yeah.
Granted, yes, because it went that way. So complete second half, Killmonger is the main villain. I guess we can just leave it as. And I think that's why I didn't have that okayness. I didn't have the okay with we gave the first half with getting Claw. We have to get him. We didn't get him. He got away, and then Killmonger kills him, and then Killmonger just goes to Wakanda, beats T'Challa, sits on the throne, starts saying, "I know exactly what we're gonna do." T'Challa comes and stops him. I just feel like that part is where I feel like maybe that could have been like allowed to breathe a little bit more. In my personal opinion,
I agree with that because I feel like the first half of the film, it did seem like Claw was going to be the main villain, and then Killmonger, they had showed him like when he was in the museum, and they stole the artifact that was made of vibranium, and then I feel like after that I didn't see him for a while, and then when he finally did kind of reappear, it was like, oh yeah, okay. I mean,
like a plot convenience.
Yeah, like oh yeah, okay, he's the villain. Okay, great. So I when you guys are saying letting it breathe, I like that expression. Justin, thank you for informing me on what that means.
Terminology.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like they could have let his storyline breathe. Like they could have done more. I get both sides. I get both with what you're saying, but I do feel like that they didn't. When I watched Black Panther, it made me think of that one. I think it was like the second Spider-Man movie where it had the Green Goblin, and it had Electro. How there was two, and I always would say I felt like they put two movies into one.
You have to specify the Amazing Spider-Man.
I'm sorry,
2.
That's true. The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
The original second Spider-Man was amazing.
Yeah. Okay, I'm specifying the Amazing Spider-Man 2 when they had two villains, and I felt like they kind of put two movies into one, or put two villains into one, when they could have easily made them into two separate films with with Spider-Man fighting two opponents. I kind of feel like they could have done that with Black Panther. They could have had this movie or the next movie, whichever one, be him facing against Claw, and then the other one him facing against Killmonger, and we could have gotten a little more. We could have had more time with Killmonger and to see kind of his upbringing, his uprising, and I think understood his motives a little more clear.
I mean, I think one thing also with me is, as a comic book fan, villains don't die that way. And I get it's two different mediums, but it's a part of me is kind of hard to always be like, but you can't bring them back. You can't do anything with them anymore. Like they're gone. So, I mean, I know that it's a film. It's always going to be I don't want to say short, but it's going to be a set story told. It's not going to be one where it'll be like, and the adventure continues. It's not going to be a Transformers where, there are 6 movies possibly coming out in that sense. So I get that, yes. In the way that both, well, maybe not Ulysses, but in the way that Killmonger went to his end, I loved it. I absolutely did love, I loved his thoughts of why he made those decisions. He stood by it. Mm-hmm. I thought that all that was great.
I loved that too.
Just the plot of that part is what I have the trouble with. But we're talking about the villain and the problems with it for me. But I don't want that to take away from everything else that this movie is absolutely perfect for.
So good.
The score, the soundtrack,
so good.
That's getting a lot of attention too.
I've been listening to that soundtrack nonstop.
The soundtrack or the score?
Well, I think it's one of the same in a little bit, because they use so. For those of you guys that didn't know, Kendrick Lamar, which is one of my favorite rappers, right? He actually still do real rap other than this mumble jumble that's going on right now in the world.
That's a whole nother
That's
episode.
a whole nother
podcast.
Check out Justin's podcast. The music,
you want to know more? Check out Justin
starring Mumble Jumbo. No, but Kendrick Lamar has been very vocal just about his viewpoints, just where he came from. He grew up in Compton and everything like that. So even when they announced that he was doing the soundtrack for this movie, usually, sometimes major blockbuster movies will have a score and then also a soundtrack on the side of that. Yes, there was a score to this movie, and it had a lot of African tribal music and stuff like that here and there, but they also weaved in some of the music from Kendrick Lamar's album.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm I feel like his album is not just the album of the movie. It's also part of it is the score, and you can tell the difference. Well, Killmonger, his character grew up in America, so whenever he was on screen, they played the hip hop music. And I remember part of the feedback from the trailers was, this is supposed to be an African movie. Why are we playing hip hop music? But now it's it makes sense because Killmonger is from America, so they played the hip hop music then. But then when T'Challa was on screen, they were playing the African tribe. So I love the healthy balance between the two. But yeah, I've been listening to Kendrick Lamar's album.
I've listened to the score, samples of the score. Not the soundtrack. The soundtrack I enjoy, but the score I can just listen to that in itself.
Yeah.
So that's been great. It's definitely one that I don't mind playing. It's not one of those epic kind of things in the same way that a lot of other film scores probably come to mind that you probably can repeat or can listen to, Indiana Jones and all those ones that you really think of when you think of the movie. At least not yet for me. It could change, but I've definitely been enjoying that. I didn't think, and this is just my personal, when Pray For Me played in the movie in the casino scene.
Yeah, I didn't think they were gonna.
The way I didn't expect it there, so that kind of caught me off.
I was like, okay, here it is.
I loved it though.
I was trying to enjoy the scene, but I was like, oh, I like the song though. That scene in itself, I mean, man. The take of how they did it.
I think that was one of the first scenes that they actually shot for the movie.
Saw that on the
on YouTube. There was a video where the director Ryan Coogler was talking about he was storyboarding pretty much one of the scenes and just giving shot by shot and different things they were doing. And the scene in Korea was one of the first things they actually shot for the movie. And actually, did you guys know that Lupita Nyong'o's green dress was 3D printed?
I did. Because I saw the video.
Oh, okay. I did not know that at all.
Actually, even Angela Bassett, who played T'Challa's mother, who she's mother of all things. She's mother to everyone. But a lot of
real mother,
the
not
real
Jennifer
mother,
Lawrence.
yeah. Oh no, not that. But yeah. No, she even said a lot of her costumes were 3D printed as well. That's cool. So I'm like still trying to get used to this whole idea of like 3D printing for different things. But
I didn't know you could. I didn't know you could 3D print clothes, I guess. I never thought about it. I know like you can 3D print things like hard like I don't know things, but like I'm thinking of like fabric, like you can 3D print like fabrics.
And I guess they said it was like really light. If you think about it, especially in that scene, like there was a lot of fight sequences in that scene, so you would need something light that you could move around in. So it sort of makes sense with it. Yeah, but yeah. That
scene, yeah. I mean, that was one of those we saw in the trailer, and it was, and that actually brings a question about the action. I've heard that the action is not a lot, and I can see where they say that, but because this movie is not an action movie, I don't think you would describe it as an action movie in that sense. It's an adventure movie, I would say, not action.
So
it has action.
I would go back to my other reference when I was talking about like Dark Knight. So for me, Dark Knight is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Of ours.
Yeah.
We agree. We concur.
So this Black Panther is also, I don't like to have any one favorite. So these are both just in my top favorites of all time. But if you think about the Dark Knight, there wasn't a lot of quote unquote action in that movie.
Right.
But that movie, hands down, is one of the, one of the best movies and it's supposed to be a quote unquote comic book movie, and it has comic book characters in it, but it's not an action movie. So I feel like this movie, especially introducing the entire world to the world of Wakanda and all these different characters and setting that platform and foundation, because it's not when they do Black Panther 2, sure. It's going to be, they can actually amp it up. It's going to be after Avengers Infinity War and anything else that's coming after that. So it could be more action in that one, depending on also where they go with like the different bad guys and stuff like that. So I feel like for this one, it didn't need to be a typical comic book movie. And I feel like that's part of the reason why it appeals to like the larger audience. Because if it was just a regular comic book movie, it was whatever.
You lose you lose that appeal to it, because it would have been like more of like, oh, okay, so yeah, car sequence.
Well, yeah, and I think too, for like, speaking for myself or for anybody who didn't know the origins of the Black Panther, I think that's what this. They had to lay it out. They had to like take me to Wakanda, and I had to learn who these characters were, who these people were, what they stood for. Learn the backstory. So I think had they just done action sequence after action sequence after action sequence, then you can't really like relay all of that information that you need to get. So I was fine that it wasn't like packed with action after action scene. Like it was okay.
I could see though why.
But I can totally see, I'm sure when, like you said, when they come out with the sequel, they can definitely amp it up and put a lot more of those scenes in there.
I don't know if it needs it, though. I see why people pointed that out, and I get it, because at this point, when you think of a Marvel movie, it's almost just as much as the next action blockbuster kind of thing. Most people assume there's going to be, a lot of actions, a lot of things. I think Captain America Civil War did have a lot of action in it. Like, it was like every 20 minutes there was some kind of like intense sequence. So I can understand.
But I don't necessarily, me personally, I don't necessarily want that, because it's like by the end of the movie, I'm so desensitized to it. Like if you keep giving me all these battles and all these fights and all this action, by the end of the movie, I'm like, okay, let's kind of like wrap it up now.
Well, that's an action movie. That's the point.
Yeah, but the entire movie, it's supposed to be an action sequence, like, or it's supposed to be full blown action the whole time.
Well, that's where it gets its title. But I'm just saying, like, with Marvel movies, though,
that's like saying a horror movie, like, oh, it's supposed to be, like, jump scares the whole, like, from the beginning to the end.
Well, that varies on that.
I feel like, though, like, because you just brought up Civil War and also horror movies, so I just came up with two things to support, like, I don't know what I'm trying to support, but I think so Captain America: Civil War, there was a lot of action in it, but I feel like the action was warranted and it was needed. So, and also I feel like Civil War before Black Panther was my favorite Marvel like cinematic universe movie because of the story, and I feel like especially with these comic book movies, you can get played out with action scenes after action scenes, and those work great in Avengers movies, and those work great in maybe Guardians of the Galaxy because it's a big team up movie. But for something like Civil War, there was a lot of story, and I feel like even with Captain America: Winter Soldier, there was a lot of story in that one as well. Which when the action sequence came on, it was a balance. And then even like with horror, like one of my favorite horror movies from last year was the movie It. And I feel like it wasn't a lot of jump scares in that movie, but it was a lot of great story in it. So I feel like, so going back to Black Panther, yes, there were action scenes in it, but I feel like the bigger thing was the story. And I think, with action movies, if you lose out on the story, yeah, you can have action sequences all day. And if you're complaining about it wasn't enough action, it's like, okay, yeah, but what about the story itself? Like, oh, the story was phenomenal. Okay, so do you really need that much action then?
Right. Like, I think if the story is there, if the content is there, then you don't need to try to, like, kind of gimmick up the film and fill it with all these, like, explosives and fires and blah, 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 blah. Like, if the story is there, then you're good. And you can, and then, like, I don't know.
Because you can put, explosions in a movie to take away from the fact that there's no story there. So if you take away all those explosions and everything like that, it's like, what do you have? You have a guy running around in a catsuit for 2 hours. It's like, okay. But the fact that you had a compelling story and you had, conflicting sides and everything like that, when the action sequences came along, they were warranted, and it made you even more engaged.
And it only enhances the
the movie itself.
I mean, if anything, what this movie is establishing is even being a superhero movie, it just needs to be a great story to be told. Like that's the thing that a lot of Phase 3 movies have been doing successfully, is focusing on this story and telling it well, rather than like, oh, audience wants humor, let's give them, all just a humor flat out. So I think I get that. And I totally get, where people expect a certain thing at this point. When you label a superhero movie, you think it's going to be one of those popcorn flicks and nonstop kind of thing. I get what they're saying, but I think Marvel is doing a great job of showing the entertainment is beyond just action after action. So that's exciting. That's good on them. One of the things that I also wanted to bring up, because I know it was something, was the CGI. I'm not one that really nitpicks on CGI, but that's also being something that's being talked about. Did you guys notice the CGI in any of the sense?
The only scene,
we saw it in IMAX.
The only scene that I would say that I noticed it didn't really bother me, because at this point I was so invested in the movie, was the very end where he brings Killmonger up and they're looking at the sunset. There was a shot where the camera pans back and they're, Killmonger's kneeling down and Black Panther's standing over him, and that scene looks very CGI. It looks like, they put like the heads on top of it, of the characters and stuff like that. So it wasn't like oh wow, it took me out of the scene. It was just something just from someone who like pays attention to movies. Like I did notice that. There were other parts of the movie where I noticed there was CGI as well. But for me, I don't like to nitpick on CGI too much unless it's just over the top, like terrible. Like Independence Day regurgence. That movie was, anyways. As first of all, Wakanda's not a real place. Second of all, there's no mountain of vibranium, so there's no way to go and actually visit this place. So there has to be, and it's like as great as technology is nowadays, there's only so much you can do. So I feel like if you nitpick about CGI to the T, it's kind of like, every
movie's gonna have that.
Every movie's gonna have that, but there's not a place I can actually go and film this. And I feel like in those moments, I'm like, okay, I can forgive it a lot because there wasn't a place. It wasn't like, if you're standing in a room and they CGI, Donnie and me sitting in this chair. No, we could have actually shot that. Like, so no, I wouldn't nitpick about that because that's terrible. But them fighting inside of the mountain when it was both Killmonger and T'Challa fighting each other, and they're both in the Black Panther suits and they're fighting inside the mountain on the train. None of that's real. So it's like, how much can you really nitpick about that when
that's true.
They can't go there and film that?
I feel like, me personally, when it comes to CGI, I think I'm on the same page as you. I don't look at it in that sense of like, this is taking me out. I can see computer imagery. It's just because at that point, why are you doing that? I mean, to some people, I guess they see it and it kills it for them.
I think people just now we're so spoiled as a movie watcher that we want to believe that Wakanda is a real place. Or Wakanda, sorry, not Wakanda.
It is
Wakanda.
Hashtag Wakanda forever.
I think it's just our expectations are a little too high. I'm not one to be fussy about CGI. I don't think my eye is that like aesthetically advanced that I can pinpoint and pick up on like, oh yeah, that's totally off. I can totally see that. A lot of the times I just like, I'm into it, I buy it, and it's fine.
You accept it.
The only part that I kind of questioned it or kind of was like, I wish they had made it look a little different was the scene when...
The entire movie.
No, not the entire movie. No, it was when T'Challa was getting crowned the king, and when all the village people were standing on the cliffs. Remember that scene?
Yes.
Yeah.
The first time.
Yeah, for the first time, and there were just a couple of shots that it looked like it was, CGI.
So just looking at the production, like video, not videos, like pictures and stuff like that. So they actually built, so they were like fighting in the water. They actually built a cliff a little bit. So there were people actually on it, but as it pans up a little bit more,
right?
Like
and
up there was probably CGI. So
yeah,
I can get that. No,
that's the only thing. I picked up on.
Okay, so if you want to complain about CGI in this movie,
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying.
No, not you.
No, I'm just kidding.
I've seen the people complain online. If you want to complain about, I know, right? You listen. Meet
we done
me
got
outside.
him started.
If you want to complain about, not you, Donnie, but if anyone wants to complain about the CGI of a fictional place in this movie, I can nitpick about Tony Stark's suit and all the recent movies that he's been in. Like when they did Iron Man 1, he was in the suit. When they did Iron Man 2, he was in a suit. But now it's, a lot of it is motion capture, but a lot of it is all CGI. And then sometimes they'll have like this chest piece on him and they'll have like the helmet that doesn't close. But they'll CGI it closing and he's not actually in there anymore. But if you look at the pictures from the set, like in like leaked pictures and stuff like that, it's just a little plastic thing that's on his chest and then he's wearing pajamas underneath. And it's CGI the whole suit.
Yep.
That I would nitpick on because I'm like, y'all put all this effort in the first couple of Iron Man movies, and to me, I can notice that a lot. Whereas, like, y'all could put forth the effort now. Now, obviously, he doesn't want to always get into the suit, so I can understand certain scenes, but I can nitpick about that a little bit more versus like nitpicking, because I remember like they were nitpicking about the Hulk and Thor Ragnarok, or they're nitpicking about Asgard. I'm like, these places are not real. Like, what do you want them to do? So like Wakanda is not real. They're not fighting in a real volcanium, so it's gonna look computer a little bit. It has to look computerized a little bit. So
we're improving to the point where a movie like Avatar, it can also feel real despite it being a lot computer generated. So it's one that I feel like is not a strong con. It's like, if you really want it's not one that can really be something you can be
that's just being like nitpicky.
Yeah,
it is. I feel like I told Oscar this before, like I feel like this movie is so good that people are going to find the littlest things to nitpick about and blow it up.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what it is. Now, there's no perfect movie, so I'm not saying that. Like, you can have your valid reasons and your valid arguments.
Speak for yourself. No, I'm just kidding. I know, right? No, just kidding.
This movie is perfect.
Me and Ruben exchanged a look.
But I feel like for those who... Like, even like some of the reviews, like on Rotten Tomato, like there was one review I saw that said, "Oh, there's not enough African culture." I'm like, did you even watch this movie? Like, I don't understand what you're talking about. So people who just want to nitpick about everything, or who just they're just bitter in life and they just are happy with themselves. They're gonna find the smallest things and blow it up and talk about that. Exactly. And I'm like, yeah, okay, all right.
Yep. I know. I personally, again, I didn't really notice anything to distract me or bother me or anything like that. But yeah, this movie is blowing it out of the waters. It's doing so well. I'm happy for it. I really am happy for it. It definitely deserves it. I don't think it's one of those that's just like, oh, it's just, you know, a movie like that's just happened to be lucky kind of sense. You know, it really deserves every praise it's getting, top to bottom of that movie. It's awesome. I think it's the second best 4-day record for Sunday, from Friday to Monday. I think Thursday to Monday. There you go.
Yeah, so I think so. They put out initial reports saying that this movie did like $235 million over the 4 days, but Oscar, you actually told me this morning that it did 242, I believe.
Yeah.
So
Best
it's
Monday, yeah.
So it joined the $200 million club, which, if you think about it, so the other movies in this list there's only 5 movies ever that has gone over $200 million in the opening weekend. 2 of them are Star Wars movies: the Star Wars The Force Awakens, the Star Wars The Last Jedi. One of them is Jurassic World that came out a couple of years ago, and then the last one is the first Avengers movie. So if you think about those properties, you know, okay, I can understand, but for
Disney one,
I know, yeah. But if you think about, first of all, not a lot of people knew about Black Panther, the character. This is also not an origin movie, but this is his first solo movie. And then I'll throw this out there: it's an all-black cast. So, you know, people would say black people don't support, they're going to bootleg. Because I remember in the initial reports of this movie, it's going to make maybe $85-90 million, which is still not bad. But for a major comic book movie, especially when they put $200 million into the budget, that can seem like it's bad. But this movie came and demolished out of the water. Like, people showed up in droves.
And speaking of the budget, he was the first black director to get that big of a budget for a film, which is like
for everything. But yeah, people came out in droves. They came. You saw generations. The same way when I went and saw Coco in theaters, you saw generations of families there. Just like now, you saw grandparents, parents, you saw the grandkids there, you saw the great grandkids there. Everyone came out and saw this movie, and it blew the expectations out of the water. I'm so proud of what this movie is doing.
I'm really happy for it. It's well deserved. This movie is one of the best Marvel movies, which is ask me a quick question. I guess I want to ask you guys: is it your favorite Marvel? I think you said yes. I think you answered that question. It is your favorite Marvel movie, right? Up to date.
I can officially say, and this is kind of tough because my brother will actually probably chew me out for this, because Spider-Man has always been my favorite character. But yes, it is my favorite Marvel movie.
Donnie, is it your favorite Marvel movie?
Yeah, to date it is. It's yes. Is it yours?
It's tough.
I know it's not yours.
I really love The Winter Soldier. That's one of those movies that I watch and I get super excited for, that I kind of want to wish I just want to start writing about the character and more about plots and superheroes. But it's right there. It's right.
You said favorite Marvel movie, right?
Yes.
Okay. MCU.
Yeah. MCU.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Favorite Marvel movie. Yes. Okay.
You made your answer. Okay.
No, I just wanted to make sure. I'm like, we're not saying favorite superhero movie.
No. It's Marvel.
Yes.
The Avengers is also one that's up there for me. Even though I still can't get over Captain America's suit. Iron Man and Doctor Strange, all those are definitely up there for me. But I just don't know if it surpasses Winter Soldier. It's just one of those. It's like when I watched Winter Soldier and I walked out, I wanted to see it again. And Black Panther, it's like I want to see it again, but I'm okay with waiting for digital, and that kind of thing.
That's an insult, Oscar.
Oh my gosh,
I take offense to that.
I said I'm okay with it. I mean, probably I just don't know if I have any plans to see it again. But Winter Soldier, I don't even think I saw Winter Soldier twice either.
But Captain America is your favorite.
Is my favorite here. Yeah.
So I can understand that though. So I mean, I feel like Captain America, Winter Soldier, and also Captain America: Civil War, for a long time, well, up until this point, has been the top movies. Even over the Avengers and stuff like that for a lot of people. So that's a valid argument, because, and I'm pretty sure, why was Winter Soldier one of your favorite movies? Was it a narrative? Was it a storyline? It was. I'm pretty sure it was some of those things in there that made it one of your favorite movies.
Right.
So I can't really argue why you feel that way about that movie.
Yeah, I mean that would be a whole nother episode comparing the two and really analyzing. So I will say for now, it sits at number 2. But with time, maybe it can pass. Winter Soldier, but as right now, Winter Soldier is still my personal.
Let it marinate a little more.
But true.
I feel like that speaks volumes though, because like you said, Captain America is your favorite superhero. Spider-Man has always been mine. And yet, you're struggling with the fact that you don't know if Black Panther is gonna pass like your favorite,
right.
Whatever. And I love Spider-Man: Homecoming. Don't get me wrong. I think that I can officially say that I like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 better than Spider-Man: Homecoming.
You're gonna get blown up on.
I know, right? That's a whole nother episode within itself as well. But I thoroughly enjoyed Spider-Man: Homecoming, everything like that, and have a deep love and passion for Spider-Man. But I don't know. It's just this character of Black Panther is something that I want to learn more about. Like I want to see more of him on screen. I want to dive deep into his comics and see his storylines and everything like that. And for me, if I can just speak on it just for a little bit, I feel like going like what you said at the beginning of the podcast, that this movie is a movement. And I love just going to even when we saw it at the Chinese theater here in Hollywood, that people showed up in their African attire and they're all black. And just to really represent themselves. Like there was a video I saw online of these two little black boys looking up at the poster and it's like, oh, I'm him, oh, that's me. And for the first time, people of African Americans or black people or just Africans in general get to see someone on a major scale that looked like them. So, we showed up, and I feel like that's why this movie is a movement. Like, you don't see other movies out there, hashtag, Avengers challenge to get, people to go see that movie. Not to take away from the movie at all, but, the Black Panther challenge was to get people in neighborhoods, little black kids and, black boys and girls to go out and see someone that looked like them on the screen. And show them, black people made this movie from in front of the camera and behind the camera. And, and that got the morale and, boosted it up. And I feel like it is more than a movie at this point. It's a movement.
Yep.
And I feel like it's going to have legs for a while. I don't think we have any major movies that are coming out between this one and A Wrinkle in Time, which is like 3 weeks away. So we still have some time for this movie to really, it's going to hit $1 billion easily now.
Yeah.
So but that's a testament to, the narrative and the story, because all this hype behind it, and if the movie came out and it sucked, you know what I mean? But the fact that you can walk away and say, no, the hype was real. Like you can actually say that, no, believe in the hype. It is actually a really good movie. So I just think that, it's one of those things where, I don't know, Black Panther is my...
It's one of those things too. It's the character has been in the comics for Marvel too, so there's going to be plenty of stories that they can pull from. So it's not like they just came up with this character yesterday or anything. So the fact that all it needed was the audience to know about it, an opportunity for it to shine, is just a testament that there are many characters too that can have this potential. And I think this is just one of the things that finally displaying that. I think Wonder Woman was another movie that started to open that. Captain Marvel probably was going to be one for next year for Marvel. So this is, it's changing time.
It's only the beginning, for Black Panther.
And plus, we got to see if Infinity War becomes a number one for a lot of people. A lot of people are expecting it to be their number one Marvel movie.
I feel like, though, with Infinity War, if it is number one, it's going to be number one for a different reason, though.
For its accumulation?
We've been waiting for the Infinity War since Nick Fury walked into Tony Stark's house and says, I want to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative back in 2008. And
then with the Avengers
And then with the Avengers showing Thanos for the first time, we've been building up to this movie. So the Infinity War, I feel like, has a lot riding against it, because there's a huge stake. This movie has to deliver on all cylinders. So I feel like, and I feel like it's going to do its thing, it will be, great, and it's going to be top for a lot of people and everything like that. But I feel like Black Panther just is number one for a lot of people for a different reason. And I feel like that's going to resonate in people's heart and mind for years to come. Right. And it's going to be one of those things where hopefully next year, I really hope they talk about Black Panther during Oscar season, because it needs to, if they can't do it for Best Picture, they need to do it for Best Costuming, Best, cinematography, all the other things they could get it in there for.
It needs to break that.
It needs to break the mode. It needs to get up in there, but
we'll see. We'll see when that time comes. All right. So we'll just go straight into this now. The real score. Justin, we'll have you go last since you're the guest. We'll have you reveal your score last.
Yeah, I'm actually interested to hear your score.
Donnie, you go first.
Oh man, okay.
Sounds like a radio. Like, I'm back.
I'm gonna give this film. I'm nervous. I'm gonna give it 4.5 out of 5 reels. It was that good. I don't want to say it was 5 out of 5, but I think all the points that we hit visually, it was beautifully shot, beautifully done. The cast, the ensemble, the actors were so amazing, and it wasn't we didn't just rely on one actor to carry this film. It was the whole cast that carried this film to new heights. I loved the story. I loved the like I said, I didn't know much about Black Panther, so I left with the sense of I know where he came from, and I'm excited to see where him and his people will go next. And it was just great. It was great. I could nitpick, I guess the nitpicky reasons are the reason why I didn't give it 5 out of 5, but a well-deserved 4.5 out of 5.
All right, so for my score, I know as we were talking for this movie, like, I had my things that I was not, I don't know, I don't want to say like, okay, I don't know what the best way would be. But those are just things that I would have wanted. But what I've wanted doesn't take away what the film really did deliver when I watched it. It is a complete story, and I think that's awesome. So I don't know if this is a surprise, but my score is also 4.5. It's definitely one of those movies that I would praise. I would tell everyone to see it. If they said, oh, what's the superhero movie I should watch? Black Panther. Right next to Captain America Winter Soldier. Right next to Justice League for different reasons.
Okay, all right. Justin.
No.
But yes, that was, I won't go too into it, but yes, that's generally, the things that I can say, I guess my criticism of it is not a criticism of the movie itself. It's just things that I would have done differently, like if it was my film in that kind of sense. So I can take that step away from punishing a film or, giving that kind of criticism. But yeah, that is my score. Justin, it's all yours. What's your score?
I was going to say something mean about your Justice League movie, but I won't do that. We'll say that for another podcast. But no, so I think when I first watched this movie for the first time, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 reels. Well, for me it was stars, but for the sake of the show, it's reels. But I think after
Thank you, Justin.
You're welcome. After seeing it 3 times now and being able to like digest the story and everything this movie stands for, I think for me this one's a 5 out of 5.
Woo!
And I think that yes, no movie is perfect. No movie is gonna deliver on everything. There's always gonna be something about it. Everyone's gonna always have, it's not gonna be able to please everyone. So yes, there are things that you can nitpick about this movie, but it's not to take away from the fact that, first off, it's crushing box office numbers. It's appealing to a wide audience. The story was great. I walked out conflicted. I walked in there on T'Challa's side. I left the movie theater understanding where Killmonger was coming from, the women in this movie. There's so many good things you can praise about this movie. I want to see more from Wakanda. I can't wait for all the Wakandan scenes in Infinity War, because I feel like those are going to be like some of the best ones. And I feel like just for me, all the feels I have from this movie is I can't give it anything below a 5. So maybe a little bit biased, but I'm gonna have to go.
Way Justice League is 5 out of 5 for me.
I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5 reels.
In the same way that I'm just kidding.
We all have a comparison. All right, cool. I think that was probably one of our favorite movies. I think we can agree on. I think that's set in stone. We all loved it. So awesome. Everyone that's listening, definitely share your thoughts. We definitely want to know what you thought of. Anything that we didn't mention. I know there are some characters like M'Baku that we didn't mention.
M'Baku.
And who was the other one?
N'Jobu?
Was that Daniel Kaluuya's character?
Is that his name? No, that was the brother.
That was
Sterling K. Brown's character.
That was the father in the beginning.
There was a lot of things we didn't mention, but we probably can do a whole nother episode on. But definitely share your thoughts. Anything we didn't cover, things we you agree with, disagree with, always. You can always find us on the Reel-ists podcast. I want to say the social media. I'll say it at Team Reel-ists. That's Team REELISTS. Definitely find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Definitely share your thoughts. Thank you everyone for listening. We hope you had a good one with this one.
Thank you so much, Justin, for being our first guest on this
course,
episode.
of course,
we loved
of course.
having you.
Did you enjoy being here?
Of course, it was really exciting.
I just wanted him to say that.
Rude.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.